Hello, Yakri here, with another World of Warcraft video this time. This isn't going to be just about World of Warcraft. It's kind of a commentary on some recent changes in World of Warcraft and on MMORPGs in general, and sort of why I'm a embittered veteran of the genre who would really like to see some new and exciting things, but I'm not really hopeful for it. So I want to talk about basically three main things, which are this new scaling system in World of Warcraft and how it's, in my opinion, pretty half-assed at best. And I want to talk about this sort of the inherent problem in how MMORPGs set up their primary content, right? And also this attitude that a lot of people have, both developers and players, seemingly. And perhaps it's a somewhat unfair generalization, but it's relatively common, at least among outspoken individuals, shall we say, that you should enjoy content on the way to max level at MMOs. Not in the sense that content on the way to max level should be enjoyable, but in the sense that you should enjoy the content, whatever it is, right? And usually this is said to justify what is, in my opinion, terrible, boring, terrible, boring shit slog of content leading up to the max level, at which point effort is actually put into the game, and for that reason it tends to be a lot more fun, right? So before we jump into that, this is sort of this is going to be more of like a podcast, not really going to do anything in the game, but here's my sort of World of Warcraft credentials, and incidentally, the origin of my username. Not this specific character, I actually deleted the original in order to make a Death Knight, which was a warrior by this name. But yeah, this is where I came up with that in World of Warcraft. I've been playing the game since about 2 months after it launched. My first character was Rand the Mage, Wheel of Time reference, if you're wondering. And yeah, I've been playing this game forever. I really spent an unhealthy amount of time on it, honestly. Yeah, so let's jump into this. Let's start with the level scaling that they've implemented, because I'm really just here to shit all over that because I was annoyed by a Reddit post praising it mostly. But it gave me some other thoughts that I wanted to bring up as well. So don't get me wrong, I think it has improved the game. Just that taken by itself makes the game a little bit better, right? It makes it a little bit more of a pain in the ass to level up, especially as a new player, because the zones are more flexible this way. And I think it's a solid improvement overall. I don't think there's really any dispute to that. However, I think it could have been made substantially better with minimal effort. I think they did not do a very good job on it, in terms of implementing it at all. Okay, that's nice that you implemented it at all, but they could have implemented it well, and they don't think they did. I don't excuse me, I don't think they did that at all. I don't think they even came close to implementing it well. So let's look at the issue I really have here, which is that the zones have really rigid ranges in which you can play in them, right? The range of level scaling is really small, right? So for example, to start off with, you're locked into the tutorial zone when you start the game. You have to play through it, at least to level 10. Why? Well, there's not really a good reason. It's a tutorial zone, sure, but people should be able to opt out of your shitty tutorial if they don't need it. I mean, especially in this day and age, a lot of people are either, playing these games and actually too young to even pay attention to the tutorial, or alternatively, don't give a shit because they've been playing MMOs for quite some time and don't need to do it. But, it's kind of like, leave it up to the player. What's the big deal, right? So if you wanted to skip to the Westfall or something, right away, you should be able to do that. That would improve the quality of the game, in my opinion, if you could just go off to the zones that you enjoy, go off and explore, and actually be able to just go and do stuff in that area, right? That's kind of what this promised and didn't deliver on. You can't just go off and do whatever. You have to do the tutorial zone, and then you have to stick to the early level zones. You can't skip ahead to Redridge Mountains, for example. You can't skip ahead to Duskwood, for example. I'm giving Alliance examples because I've played Alliance forever. So it just kills one of the biggest advantages that you could have had from this scaling system. And it just gets worse from there, right? The upscaling is capped as well, so I can't go back on my level 110 character and complete some old world content. You know, maybe I like playing a rogue, and I don't want to play any other classes right now. Just say. It's not actually true, but pretending, right? But I'd like to go back and relive the glory days and kind of explore the old content and complete more quests, earn some achievements, that kind of thing, right? But I'd like it to be challenging, right? I don't want to just feel like going around, everything dying in my path. Well, that's not an option. They could have made it an option. They certainly could have. They did all the work necessary to implement something like that, but they didn't do it. Why? Well, what's the good reason to not do that? Come on. Anybody? It's very frustrating to me. And this continues with the later zones in the game. So, let's look at Outland, right? It only scales up to 80. Now, I hated Outland, but suppose you loved it, right? You think it's absolutely fan-flippin-tastic. You want to stay in Outland as long as possible. Why shouldn't you be able to go through all the content in Outland? Do every dungeon multiple times, complete every single quest, and keep leveling that whole time towards level 100, at least. Right? Is there really a good reason to force people into new zones when you're implementing this system that seemingly is supposed to allow the opposite, to allow people to explore the game the way that they want to explore the game, right? Just completely baffles me. And then, of course, I'm annoyed that Northrend only actually caps at 80 because, for one, it was a higher level zone than Outland. It should go up to a higher level than 80. That was the freaking intended top level of Northrend anyway. And I'd actually like to explore Northrend a lot, but it stops at 80, and then you have to go on to Maelstrom or Pandaland, and I'm not a huge fan of those. Maybe I'd like to keep exploring Northrend. Well, not an option. I gotta go to Maelstrom or Pandaland. Frankly, it's gonna be Pandaland because the Maelstrom zone's kind of fucking shit for leveling through. But yeah, not a huge fan of that. And it just keeps on. Pandaria goes up to 90, and then Draenor is 90 to 100. Just super locked in, super rigid, really defeating the purpose of this whole system, or the theoretical purpose of the system, the advantages of the system. And so it really grinds my gears. People are like, wow, I'm loving exploring the world. Like, I'd love to explore the world too, but y'all, my character, I only have one character slot that's not level 60 yet, and honestly, I'm saving that in case I want to create a new character for a 110 boost when the next expansion comes out. So, like, it's kind of been there, done that, and I missed most of the content because there was no such system in, and you leveled up a lot faster before they nerfed leveling really severely, which is another thing that irritates me. We'll get to that later. But yeah, I just don't think it actually facilitates what people are praising it for very well, and without a lot of effort, it could facilitate it much better. So that's what I'm saying is I think it's half-assed. I think they really did not do a very good job with it at all, although I'm glad that they implemented it instead of, like, nothing, for example. It's better than nothing. Now, where was I going with the rest of this? I think I need a moment to collect my thoughts here. So that's the first point, right? I'm not a huge fan of how this leveling system has turned out in the sense that it's very half-assed. Oh, yes. Here's the other problem, right? And here's the problem with this idea of going back to the old areas and really exploring them, right? It sounds exciting, theoretically, and I can kind of see some of the appeal to it, especially through very rose-tinted glasses, right? If we go back to these old zones, there was stuff when I was a kid, when I was exploring the game, that was really awesome to me. I can't remember where it is, but somewhere in, I think, Dwarven territory, there's like this huge dam, right? And you can like jump off of it. It's one of like the highest places up in the old game that you could go to. Maybe not the highest, but very high. And it was very cool to see stuff like that, right, in a game. Like it's just big, expansive game. There's just this huge, expansive game world. It's very fun to explore. And I can see that appeal, right? However, you're not rewarded for doing that, really, right? And the main gameplay loop of the old game is not particularly fun, honestly. I mean, I can see why, especially my past self and people who have not spent the really unhealthy number of hours playing MMOs that I have can kind of tolerate it better than me. But the fact of the matter is that most of the content in old WoW, and it's still not super different now, but it was definitely more the case before, is go here, kill 10 boars, right? Over and over again. Over and over again, all the way to max level. Go here, kill 10 boars. Go there, kill 10 boars. Go get this thing for me. Go take this thing over there. And that's the whole game, all the way up to max level. It's so tedious. It is so immensely tedious. And you know, I've only done some rough calculations here. I'm sure someone could get a better estimation, but from my own experience playing my characters, it takes something like, if you're a casual player, right, and you're not utilizing any like optimal strategy for power leveling, you're just having fun and playing the game, it's gonna take you like 20 hours to get to the 60th level now, maybe a little less. That was the figure I'm the least sure on. And it's gonna take you like, what is it? 70, 80, 90, 100, like 40 hours to hit level 100, maybe a little bit more. So it's going to be like between 40 and 70 hours of gameplay to max level, right? Here's the thing. That would be really appealing if the gameplay was on the same kind of quality level that like Divinity, Divinity 2, is that the game I'm thinking of? Yeah, Divinity 2 was on, right? If it was on the same level as any of these like good RPGs with a rich storyline and all this, but there are only small like splotches of that in your time leveling up through World of Warcraft. And the vast majority of this time that you're going to spend, these like up to like let's say like 50 hours, you're probably going to spend casually leveling up to the level cap, is just going to be go here, kill 10 boars. Go there, kill 10 boars. Over and over again. Over and over and over for 50 hours. Like, just think about that for a second. Like, imagine, I mean, this is obviously not what you'd really do, but imagine doing that consecutively. No breaks, awake the whole time. Only, you know, you just go to this place and you kill 10 NPCs, right? That are really trivial to kill. They pose no challenge. It's just a time sink, right, to kill them. And you go back to the spot where you got the quest to kill them, and you turn it in and you go and do it again. Over and over and over and over. And you do get some change in scenery, you get to explore a bit, and that's like kind of the relief, right? But that's what MMOs are kind of about, right? But they don't have to be, and that's the thing. You know, it's kind of how World of Warcraft has not aged well, and sort of a gripe I have in that World of Warcraft has inspired this kind of attitude towards content in other games, right? It's almost like people feel that this is not just a limitation of the resources that they had available when making the game, but a requirement to make a good MMO now. And I think it is the former, right? That making a quest where you go and kill 10 generic enemies that can be reused over and over again, maybe just scaling up the model a little bit for higher level versions and stuff, is far more resource efficient than creating a like storyline mission with voice acting and dramatic scripting and a cinematic at the end for very obvious reasons, right? Doesn't that sound more fun if you had to actually do something that was relevant to the game's main plot, right? And there was scripting and cinematics and voice acting, and that's what you did every single step of the way to maximum level. Now, if that was the kind of game we were playing, and people told me to just have fun with it, you know, and not worry about the number of hours, I mean, I'd be happy. I'd be very happy if it took me 70 hours of like high quality storyline content that varied each time I played it because you couldn't experience it all in one run, all the way to level 110. The thing is, though, that there are small patches of that content. You can hit most of the best ones, like sort of a favorite destinations type thing on your way to maximum level if you're an experienced player. I wish there was a better way for new players to actually get the good bits and not the kill 10 boars quests, but you can do that if you're leveling at a very accelerated rate on your way to maximum level, and most of that content is weighted to the later parts of the game, right? We're talking about like Northrend, we're talking about the newer sections of the game. I was not a huge fan, honestly, of Pandaria, but Cataclysm had a good bit of this as well. And then I would say Draenor and Legion had the most of it, of any section of the game. Like a dramatically higher amount of like storyline content, scripted events, and cinematics, right? So yeah, I think the main gameplay loop of MMOs tends to be really boring. And MMO content is kind of made like a mace, right? There's just this long pole and the good meaty bit is at the end, right? That you want to smack people with. And so it irks me when people have this attitude of like, well, you should enjoy going up the skinny little shitty pole that leads to the good bit. You probably shouldn't. You're not even necessarily meant to. It's meant to be tolerable, at least kind of fun, right? But it's a very monotonous kind of fun because it's a time sink, right? So that you don't burn through the whole game too quickly, because the content at the end takes a lot of effort to produce, right? And there's not going to be as much of it. That's just how it is, right? I mean, the more quality you put into something, it's proportional to some degree to the work you put into it, and therefore, things that are high quality take a lot of work, and you can't have as much of them. But yeah, so that just kind of like ties into this whole thing. If the scaling system were more flexible and allowed you to go to more places at any given level, there would be a far higher degree of opportunity for players to explore the parts of the game that are not go here and kill 10 boars, right? To explore the parts of the game that are more interesting, that are more, the small like nuggets of storyline and really flavorful quests that existed in the old World of Warcraft game and in the subsequent expansions when it was less common, right? But they didn't do that, and so that's kind of something that's like really irked me about this, because when I first heard about it, that's what I thought had happened, and I was very excited to kind of get back into the game and be like, all right, I'll level up some of my old characters, and it'll be interesting, right? I'll like go across different zones, and like maybe I'll level a character all the way up to level 100 just in old Azeroth. I mean, there's so much freaking content. I could go around all over the place, right? But you can't do that, and then of course, you know, once you actually start to get into it, even if you could, you realize that it would be a lot of go here, kill 10 boars. So, okay. The third point. What was the third point? I feel like I've lost the plot now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this one back out of my memory. I should have written these down. But I like doing this like kind of a casual conversation type thing. Or you know, maybe it's more of a rant, but you know. The third point was that... Shit. I said that the system was half-assed. The main gameplay loop of MMOs is kind of shit. Crap. I think I maybe covered everything. You know, maybe I'll make a follow-up video. This is probably a little bit too long for this kind of thing anyway. If I remember what the hell my third point was, if I didn't cover it already in the first two somehow, I'll make a follow-up video. But to close this out, I guess my gripe is that with the recent changes going into this scaling patch, they didn't truly allow you to just kind of go where you want and explore the content in the game when they had the opportunity to do that, and it would have been very cool. They didn't do that, and so I'm salty about that. And then there's the fact that they also slowed down leveling, and they've been removing ways to speed up leveling. And a lot of people are kind of praising it, right? Because I think there's this kind of weird like fetishization of MMOs being super grindy. Maybe it's not that weird because, I mean, in Asia, it's really popular anyway. So maybe in the West, it's just bizarre that people like faster paced games, right? Actually, perhaps that's the case. But I'm not one of those people. Or not one of those people that thinks grindiness is good. I think that it's very... non-ideal for games to be grindy, right? It's perhaps needed to some degree for there to be a time sink, right, for creating characters and stuff, and with the whole way that MMOs work, so that players don't just burn through all the content in your game and get bored and quit, right? But I think unfortunately that kind of lends itself to gameplay that is perhaps addicting and time-consuming, but not necessarily fun by its nature. Yeah. And so I think that this sort of like decrease in leveling speed and stuff is not really helpful. I think it's annoying. That's a good way to put it. I think it's annoying because, and the reason it's annoying is because the content you do, and this is actually my third point, I have remembered it, the content you do going up to max level does not matter, right? And so it's this like it's sort of permeated by the sense of uselessness, because if you get an item at 40th level, at 60th level, at 109th level, oh crap, I've been disconnected. Well, this is a slightly more boring background page for my podcast. All right, so 109th level, you get that item, and it's going to be useless, right? It's going to be obliviated the instant you get to maximum level and start getting the real content, the real items, right? And so I think if that was not true, then there would be a lot more truth to this whole like, it should take you more time. You should really spend more time going through the levels. You should really enjoy the leveling up process more. But it's really treated as this sort of like throwaway thing that you just do to make it be more time consuming to hit max level, right? It's really treated by the developers, especially, I guess, I have to put this at their feet, that as if it's just a time sink. And so I'm going to bring up a game that's a terrible game, but I kind of loved it back in the day. Shadowbane. For those of you unfamiliar, it's a horribly failed world PvP game, right? Where you could just like blow up other players' cities and build cities and all this crazy stuff. But the real interesting thing here is in Shadowbane, it's not too crazy for a character, the max level in that is 75, for a character around level 40 or so to beat a level 75 character in PvP. And it's a primarily PvP game. But not just that, you could beat level 75 mobs in PvE as well, without too much trouble, really. Depends on your character build a bit, you know, it wasn't really well balanced, but hey, it was possible. And furthermore, there weren't explicit level requirements on gear. So you could get gear that was useful at max level, at 40th level. Now this flies in the face of a lot of traditional MMO progression, right? But it does one really nice thing. Despite the fact that the game was terrible in a lot of ways, had awful PvE. But the nice thing is that once you hit level 40 or 50 or so, you can go around and you've hopefully acquired enough money and maybe have some support from friends or a guild, and you can get some okay gear and you can train up your skills and you can actually participate in the game. Right, like halfway to the level cap, a little bit past halfway to the level cap, you can already participate in the real game, what the game's about. You can participate in PvP, you can participate in high-end PvE, right? Group sizes are large, traditionally, so it's not really a big deal to let some lower-level person into one of your group slots, usually. You know, and so it creates this situation where this later half of the leveling, although leveling in that game is super fast, but even if it wasn't, it creates this situation where the later half of the leveling is very enjoyable because you can kind of just do the things you'd want to do anyway on a max level character. Less effectively, sure, there's still a lot of benefits you're going to get as you get up to max level. You're still at a disadvantage, but it's not like World of Warcraft and a lot of other MMOs have done, where you are useless, right? If something is like 10 levels higher than you, you have no effect on it at all in this game. And it goes for players too. It wasn't even really true actually back in vanilla, right? The gap was pretty thin, but you got to like level 54, 55, you could start getting gear that's relevant to when you hit max level. You get level 58, certainly there's some stuff you can collect on your way to max level back in vanilla World of Warcraft. And you could also potentially kill a character maybe 10 levels higher than you in PvP if you were very lucky. And so the whole, what I'm getting at here is that there's just this absolutely colossal void, gap between I guess rift actually is more the word I want. Rift between low-level play, every single level before max level, and max level play in these games. And in a game that's set up that way, then it makes the lower level play less important. It makes it just a time sink to rush through to get to the max level. If the low level play mattered, I think that these kind of systems where like, all right, the XP is a little bit slower, you're expected to kind of go around and explore the world, this would be much more rewarding, right? It's very unrewarding instead, is my kind of issue here, right? It's extremely unrewarding instead of very rewarding. And so I think this is kind of an area where World of Warcraft has failed pretty hard, and I want to say it's been years since I played Guild Wars, but Guild Wars I think was at least a lot, Guild Wars 2 that is, was a lot more, actually Guild Wars 1 too, was a lot more on the right track, right? Guild Wars 1, very cinematic focused, leveling is not really a go here, kill 10 boars experience, there's a little bit of that, but it's not too much. very, very cinematic focused, very storyline focused. Then you go into Guild Wars 2, and it goes more in the traditional MMO route, but the downscaling of content so that you could like kind of go wherever. I kind of wish they mix and match so you could also, so that you could just really go wherever, right, and not have to actually level up through zones. But maybe zone progression is a good idea. I'm not a professional game designer, so I shouldn't really value my opinion too much more highly than the pros. But I think they were really on the right track there, and I think this disappoints me in World of Warcraft because there's kind of an opportunity here to perhaps do something at least a little bit closer to that. You know, maybe have this situation where we can go, you could go to different level zones and, you know, maybe like, I don't know how you do like paired leveling with other people, but yeah, you know, you just go up to higher level zones, go to lower level zones, go all over the game and explore where you want to go and just have fun doing it. And then the whole Kill 10's Boars issue and the fact that low-level content is irrelevant to high-level content is kind of a different issue, but I think it just kind of alliterates the problem of saying that, like, well, you should just enjoy the leveling process, right? Because the leveling process is not really designed to be a part of the, air quotes, real game, as it were, right, at high level. It doesn't fit with the high level game. There's a distinct delineation between when you're leveling and when you've reached maximum level. And I think MMOs would be a lot more fun if that wasn't there and we got less of the go here, kill 10 boars thing. But perhaps it is necessary from a financial perspective and with the realities of making a colossal sized game, right? Anyway, so hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Yakri out.